Hey Sprouts, during the months of June and July, we will not be having new content here on the Catholic Sprouts podcast. Instead, we will be revisiting some of my favorite weeks of content. And here is one of those weeks. Enjoy! You're listening to
Catholic Sprouts,
the daily podcast for Catholic kids that strives to plant seeds of faith. Hey there, Sprouts. Today is Friday, March 29th, 2019. This week on the Catholic Sprouts podcast, we have been talking about Jesus Christ as we journey through Lent, but particularly we have been talking about his miracles. We've talked about the transformation from water to wine at the wedding feast at Cana. We talked about his many healing miracles, and specifically how you needed to believe in him to be faithful for his miracle to work in you, and also how Christ was after our physical healing as well as our spiritual healing. Yesterday, we talked about one of the most well-known miracles, and that was the feeding of the 5,000, and how Christ takes pity on us, he sees our needs, and he blesses us with abundant blessings when we allow his power to work in our lives. Today, we are going to talk about a different kind of miracle. We are going to talk about one of the times when Jesus walked on water. And here is a story that we are going to read. It is taken from the Gospel of Matthew. And early in the morning, he came walking toward them on the sea. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified, saying, "It's a ghost." And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them and said, "Take heart, it is I, do not be afraid." Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come out to you on the water." He said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat, started walking on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he noticed the strong wind, he became frightened and began to sink, and he cried out, "Lord, save me." Jesus immediately reached out his hand and caught him, saying to him, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" When they got into the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." The Gospel of the Lord. Now, we are concluding our week looking at miracles with this miracle, Jesus walking on the water. There are certain things that we can talk about to get even a little bit more meaning out of this. So first of all, I want you to remember how the disciples responded when they saw Jesus walking on the water. They were terrified, and they thought it was a ghost. Now, if you saw someone walking on the water, you might have the same reaction, but I want you to remember something. This story comes in the gospel after they have already witnessed Jesus perform some amazing miracles. They have seen him raise people from the dead and heal people and multiply loaves. I mean, really, is walking on the water so surprising when you've seen Jesus do all of these things? And we can be a little bit down on the disciples, perhaps. But I want you to remember something, my friends. We have seen an even more incredible miracle Jesus perform, and we see it every time we go to Mass. We see ordinary bread and wine transformed to the true presence of Jesus Christ. We might not think that this is so remarkable simply because we see it all the time, but it is. And in fact, it is a bigger miracle than anything the disciples ever saw. So if you are ever reading the Gospels and you feel like the disciples are kind of dumb because they should realize that God is powerful, realize that about yourself too. We also have seen incredible miracles from Jesus Christ. Now, in this story of Jesus walking on the water, Peter calls out and asks Jesus to call him out onto the water. Peter is a pretty fun character. He's very bold. He oftentimes doesn't think about things too much before he leaps to action. But he asked to come out on the water, and amazingly, Peter is able to stand on the water as well. The final thing I want you to think about is something we have already talked about this week with miracles. our faith in Jesus is so important to the work of these miracles. Peter believes. He steps out onto the water, and in that belief, he too is able to walk on top of the water. But then he sees the wind and the waves, and he becomes afraid. He takes his eyes off of Jesus, and he starts to sink. He calls out to Jesus in faith, and Jesus rescues him. But do you see how important faith is? Christ can work amazing miracles through us when we believe in him. And so, Sprouts, I have one last challenge for you this week. And I want you to say this simple prayer. Jesus, help me to see your miracles. Jesus, help me to see your miracles. Help me to notice the miracle that I experience every Sunday in Mass and realize that it is a miracle. Help me to see the small miracles you perform in my life every day. Just help me to see your miracles. That's it for Catholic Sprouts today. We'll be back tomorrow, but until then, continue to grow in your faith and truly sprout into the beautiful creation that God intended you to be. Just one more thing, Sprouts. I need your help. Following Easter, we are going to be having a special series here on the Catholic Sprouts podcast where we talk directly to people that have made the choice to enter religious life, specifically those that serve our church as priests or those that have become nuns. So, what I need from you are questions. If you could ask a priest or a nun anything, what would you ask them? Talk to your adult and have them submit your questions that I will use to talk to priests and nuns and share with you here on the podcast. So submit them at catholicsprouts.com/questions.